Former State Department employee, the man I'm talking about. He's the executive director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. Mike Benz is with us. Mike, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Mike, I think they're listening to you. What do you think?
I think they're in a lot of trouble. John Brennan has a whole lot of chutzpah to be out there saying what he's saying. We should be grateful, at least, that he has not flown to some non-extradition country. This is someone who was openly accusing Donald Trump of high crimes and misdemeanors and treason himself in 2018. I'm reading before me a tweet from July 2018 from John Brennan. Donald Trump's press conference in Helsinki rises and exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors. It was nothing short of treasonous. Well, methinks the lady doth accuse of treason a little too much. John Brennan was the one, of course, whose handwritten notes on August 3rd, 2016, showed that they knew that Hillary Clinton, was the CIA director. The exact quote here, cite alleged approval by Hillary Clinton on July 28th, that was just 5 days earlier, of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference from the Russian security services. So that was the CIA director being apprised that the recent Secretary of State was going to gin up a fake charge of Russian interference. And then John Brennan goes back and stuffs the intelligence community assessment with a total BS predicate from the Steele dossier, the P dossier, against the open outcries of 20 different CIA and FBI officials. But I have a request to ODNI and to the Justice Department and to John Ratcliffe right now, which is that those handwritten notes from John Brennan, to me, seem like the most damning part of the entire Russiagate affair, because it shows not only did they lie and gin up the intelligence assessment about non-existent Russian interference against their own internal intelligence, but that they knew the whole thing originated from Hillary Clinton without evidence, and that Hillary Clinton had employed Christopher Steele in order to compile the Steele dossier, which John Brennan would then use. Now, when you look at the handwritten notes from August 3rd, 2016, the part of the text of which I just read to you, it is still 75% redacted. There are still giant black bars over everything that James Comey said in that meeting that are in John Brennan's handwritten notes, over 2/3 of what Barack Obama said in that meeting. I cannot for the life of me understand what could possibly justify, in the year 2025, continuing to redact perhaps the most bombshell document of the whole Russiagate affair.
So why do you think it is being redacted? You know, I've called out guys like Mike Pompeo and Gina Haspel and so many others that were there during the first Trump administration, that were really part of the cover-up when you think about it. So why would they still now be redacting all of this information we're desperate for?
Well, I think what was happening at the time was you had that exact wing of the GOP, which was so gung-ho about seizing Eurasia and war on Russia. Remember, at this time, we were still funding the Ukrainian military in 2019, 2020, years before the actual kinetic military conflict with Russia stepping into it. At the time, the GOP was trying to recover the fumbled football of a Democrat coup in Ukraine in 2014, which was assisted by the highest rank and file of the Republican foreign policy establishment, such as John McCain and company, who were on the ground during the Maidan Revolution. But I don't know what was in Mike Pompeo or Gina Haspel's heads at the time. We know that Gina Haspel formerly worked for John Brennan, so that's not a good start in this story in terms of Trump's first CIA. Mike Pompeo, and I'm not casting aspersions here as my former boss, but the fact is Mike Pompeo has been in Ukraine for the past several months campaigning for Ukraine to do the exact opposite of what President Trump wanted. I believe that Mike Pompeo also has some financial interests in Ukrainian telecom companies, or appears to be on the board there. There are some conflicts of interest in that Ukraine story, and certainly on foreign policy, there is very much a high degree of sunlight between what the president has wanted with peace and what the traditional Republican State Department line has been. And so I think perhaps in an effort to not collapse the pressure on Russia, there was an attempt to shield the Russiagate files. And I believe the time for that ruse to continue has come fully to an end.
I agree with you 100%. All right, real quick, because I'm almost out of time, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Dan Bongino said he's basically shocked to his core. I'm going to read you a little bit of his tweet that he posted, saying investigations continue, but if you could put up tweet 17 for the guys behind the glass, quote, but what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into these aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. This is a former Secret Service agent, a guy who was a New York City cop. He's seen an awful lot. Shock to the core is big. I had a friend of mine said, I wonder if this has to do with children, if it has to do with who knows what. You have any insight on any of this, Benz, or any reaction to it real quick if you can?
Well, Dan Bongino has one of the hardest jobs in Washington. I don't know anyone who's got a family or a mortgage who would happily swap places with the job that Dan Bongino has been tasked to do as Deputy FBI Director. We know that things came to a head earlier this month when Dan Bongino threatened to resign, apparently over issues around the Epstein files. At least that was what was publicly reported. It did appear that both Dan and Cash, as the FBI director, appeared to have a little bit more confidence about the handling of DOJ prior to the past few weeks when, for example, the original confidence level that was assessed about Epstein killing himself in prison appeared to be based on raw files that were going to be published showing continuous security camera footage of Epstein's jail cell. And then once that raw footage was put out, it turned out there was something like 2 minutes and 53 seconds missing. I happen to think that it's very likely that Dan and Cash did not know that at the time. Perhaps they were fooled by the Justice Department. Perhaps there are other elements of the Epstein case, as well as many others, that in the course of their investigations are simply shocking even to folks who are in the business of reporting shocking news. But whether that's what happened with January 6th, whether that's with Epstein, whether that's with all the various sting operations that were run from both the Biden FBI and stretching back, frankly, 70 years, as well as the FBI's own system for hiding documents, we know that it was Dan and Cash, who showed the Sentinel system blocking files.